This is Cutting Down the Nets, Monday, December 20th. Today will be a deep dive into 4 games as to what my process is for handicapping and how I think you could be a better handicapper. What things I look at, what things I don't. And all in all, this is not to tout picks. It's to make you better for the year. 221 and 161, that is 57.9%. I can't stress how incredibly difficult it is to win 58% of the time over that large of a sample. I do not expect that we will regress down to like 53 or anything like that, but it requires a lot of discipline, and there are times where I lose that. Last 7 days, 57.8%. Been very consistent. I consider each season to have quite a few parts. Early on, there is no data. Like, these games are just starting. We're talking like November 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. There's no games have been played. Where's the edge? The edge there is in exposing preseason rankings from like Ken Pom and Bart Torvik. Sometimes you'll see baseline tempos that are set wrong. Coaching changes where it's like, well, this coach isn't going to stylistically bring something completely different. It's just not very likely. You also will see bad teams just lifted up for returning players. Like, if I had 5 awful basketball players on my team, and I returned them all, that's not necessarily a good thing. And I think teams get too big of bumps for that. And I think teams also get too big of bumps for just returning lots of juniors. Where it's like, oh, now they bring back everybody. And look, that can be a good thing. Some teams are really good and they return their core. But sometimes there's not that leap that people are expecting from a junior to a senior year. As a Hawkeye fan, take Jordan Bohannon, for example. Appreciate what he's done for his career. I don't know, I'm 40. I think he's my age now. But, I mean, what are you going to see between year 5 and 6 for Jordan Bohannon? I mean, you'll actually see a decline. I think you're seeing that. Now, Jaden Ivey, Purdue, from freshman to sophomore, like that's where your leaps are. So, I don't know, just something to note there. Okay, then we get into our wheelhouse, and that's kind of been where we've been for the last 5-6 weeks. Games have been played, but people are still anchored to the preseason predictions. I've mentioned this many times. This is where there is an edge. We are entering a period that doesn't last too long, but is dangerous because these markets have kind of shifted away from their preseason. Hey, enough games have been played, they fall off, and now everyone's looking at the same data. So, look, you still find value. It's just a lot harder. And things that I find there, like, I've never paid attention to win-loss records, but people do. I just look at how efficient you were in your wins or losses. So teams that have lost a number of close games that played efficiently in those likely carry value. And then team luck, as you call it, those teams that always win by 1 and reach this point in the season when they're like 18-3 or something like that, typically value in fading those. Only if the data says so, but I'm just saying, like, usually those markets get inflated around those, and our efficiency model will keep a more even approach to that. So something to note there. Then the final stretch of the season. And I shouldn't say final stretch of the season. I'm talking the whole second half of the season. That's where I feel I have a massive edge. Because most people, most markets are looking at the whole year at that point, and I'm looking at much more recent data. And I have just enough for it to be a sample size that I feel I can trust, but not enough to be weighting a game that occurred on November 11th the same as one that occurred on January 10th. So that's just a little dive into what to expect coming ahead. With the short schedule today, I got out of my parents' basement and said, let's go into more detail here today. So, Ma, the meatloaf. Not finished with my segment, Mom. So we're going to go soup to nuts here. Here's what I do. And look, I know it's hard to see this. I don't know how to zoom on this. I barely know how to code. It was like thousands of hours of watching YouTube videos of people that aren't using it for basketball purposes on how I could import a giant CSV file, parse through it, get what I want, and use it. So each day I load in the box scores, and it just spits out that day's schedule as well. And this first thing is a summary. So this is just rolling up data, not considering any outliers, what the games were on the schedule and what the spreads were. So the Citadel, I have them favored by 16.2. St. Thomas, I have by 15. And we'll get into that type of stuff. So all of this has not been looked at by a human, is how I would say it. What I do is I then transfer that to a spreadsheet that's easier to see for you guys. And I want to see variance between what the model spit out and what the actual line is. So for instance, Northern Arizona Gonzaga, model had like 33, line's 35, not much value. And not enough value that I'm really keeping on the radar. Like that couldn't go to a place where I'd want to bet the other, so I just make it gray and move on. If it looks real nice, I'll make it green, like, okay, that's likely. I'm looking for a reason not to do that. Orange is like, yeah, I don't really want to do that, but it's worth being on the radar because if we get the line movement the way we need it to, it could come into play. But typically the orange are like larger spreads where I just don't love it. So I've got a pool, and this pool is roughly, I'd say 5 teams, but we could really call it 4, and that's what we'll go in for 4. Then I have a standard deviation one where I'm going to actually simulate these to go into more detail. So same schedule, but it's going to give me more data. And I have no problem sharing this because I know how incredibly difficult, like the model itself is simple, but creating it and having it run automatically is extremely difficult and took a lot of time. The reason I chose to do this is it was frustrating to handicap in Excel and then finish handicapping a game and then being like, oh, I have 5 and the line is 5. So that was a waste of time. So by doing it this way, I can sift through and highlight things that I want to actually dig into and spend more time on. So Louisiana Monroe and Lamar is on my list. This is their game log. So they've played roughly 8 games. Tempo's been fairly consistent in the low 70s. They have 1/3 of an adjusted offensive efficiency of 75. That was against LSU. Knowing how good LSU's defense is, you had to be real bad to get a number like that. And then their adjusted defensive efficiencies. Lamar has cracked 100 3 times. They've had a lot of 70s and 80s recently and are an absolute sieve on defense. So this model is using 103 adjusted offensive efficiency and 104 for Louisiana Monroe, and 93 roughly and 111 for Lamar. What that spits out is simulation somewhere between 8 and 12 points, depending on the sample size. Overall, a median around like 9.5 or so. So we go back here, 9.422. Current line is 4.5. So far, so good. I'm looking for reasons to not bet this game. Louisiana Monroe apparently are 7-4. Again, don't care. There's that 75.6 that pops up against LSU. Aha! It was 101-39. Congratulations. They went 10-31 from 2, 3-16 from deep, and overall on the year, their 2-point percentage is 55.4. Their 3-point percentage is 32.1. That's an outlier, but that's a good team. Now, against Auburn, they got to a 106 efficiency. Still low point per possession, but this is where we ask ourselves, is this team inept offensively? And I think the answer is no. They've also played Louisiana Tech, SMU, And then some bad teams. So you can see the offensive efficiency is definitely not 75.6, but probably not 122.7. 11 out of 21 from 3 leads to that. So our data kind of tells us, here's what we got, what led to that, this is what led to that, and then you have to decide how you want to make that decision. So Torvik, his algorithm has 100 and 103.7. I had 103 and 104. And the reason would be because I would be weighting these games way more than that. But I think we may even be a little light with our prediction and could even be more like 105. So from a offensive perspective, I have zero concerns that I'm like in trouble with what I'm projecting for Louisiana Monroe from an adjusted efficiency standpoint. Now on defense, we actually have an upside case here because they have been getting torched from 3-point range. 13 out of 27, 10 out of 22, 7 out of 14. For the year, 38.8%. Now, you have to ask yourself, is this due to luck or is this due to suck? And I think at this point in the season, it's more luck than suck. But if this keeps going on, it'd be like, yeah, that team just gives up wide open looks to 3-point range. That's also a little high given the quality of competition. They've played Auburn, SMU, Louisiana Tech, LSU. Those are not adjusted numbers. That's made baskets out of opportunities. So overall, I don't see anything concerning with Louisiana Monroe's profile yet. Okay, we go to Lamar, ranked 331. They are 2-10. Whew, oh daddy. They've played, of note, Texas Tech and Mississippi State. And you'll see the same data that we saw on my Python script. Not good. Now, why is this not good? A little bit of bad on 3-point. And you'll see that 31.6 on the year. They're also getting torched from deep. Is it luck? Is it suck? But we've got some tide turning here. So they are probably not as bad as recent data suggests from 3-point range. And they're probably not as good as recent data suggests from 3-point defense. However, you make these things a point of emphasis and you get an ebb and flow throughout the year. Here's something concerning though, 65.7 tempo. That is a slow pace when you're looking to back a favorite against them. So now what I would do is I would click on the actual game and match these teams up. What I'm looking for at this point is anything that stands out matchup-wise that is concerning. For instance, if this game was close, but then I see that Lamar turns the ball over at an extremely low rate, and Louisiana Monroe's efficiency, that high 2-point offense, is coming off of turnovers, like turnover to dunk, turnover to layup, and they're not going to have those opportunities, then it's like, they're not set up to play the way they want, to be as efficient as they have been. So that's the name of the game. I also look at shot share, where these shots are occurring. I think that is very important. Lamar, only 1% of their dunks or shots on the season have been dunks. Kind of gives you a little glimpse into their athletic profile as well. So not much close for Monroe, but here, 39% of their shots are close twos. So again, is that layups? Is that pounding the post? I don't know. You're going to have to follow someone who really digs into these teams to get that. But I'm going to get enough information to make a decision. But overall, I like to see a strong shot share here, and I like to see a low shot share here. I don't like my team shooting farther twos. I want rim and 3. So 34.7 of their shots are from 3, 39 are up close, and really 45 if you combine those two. However, Lamar's decent at preventing close shots, as evidenced by 31.5. They do funnel opponents into the 3-point shot, allowing their opponents to shoot 40.5% of their shots from 3. However, I don't know, if you combine this and this, you're about 40% at the rim, 40% give or take, at 3, and then left with what's kind of in the middle for further twos. So, based on that information, I don't love the pace that Lamar could grind at, and I feel this is a good handicap. Louisiana Monroe. I have 9.4. It's 4.5. Unfortunately, I saw some 2.5s and 3s last night, and now I have to decide what to do, and that's kind of the tricky part. The game within the game. One is having a good number and knowing what you feel is the right side to bet. Then it's getting the best number. KenPom is 2. Okay. So could that climb down? Yes. But then you also look at the fact that Lamar is 2-10. Louisiana Monroe is 7-4. And when people look at these matchups, they're going to see that. And it's somewhat of a light spread at just 4.5. So it's a tough one. But I would bet ULM. Now I have to decide if I'm going to click on the 4.5 and risk it going down and giving up closing line value, or securing the 4.5 in case it went to 5, 5.5. Given how bad Lamar is, I would lean towards being fine with a 4.5 and then just deal with it. If it drops, it sucks, and you move on with your life. But you could save yourself a point there. Another benefit of doing the show at night, and I apologize for letting you down, it's been busy with holiday travel and things like that. So 1 game down. Again, we went to our pool and we identified our next game, which was the Citadel and South Carolina State. 93 and 109, 105 and 104. We have this Citadel by 16. Line is 11.5. KenPom is 15, but this was higher and has come down. Let's dig into that matchup. Here's the Citadel. They sit at 6-3. Stylistically, nothing too weird. Very strong, effective field goal defense. Ooh, okay, this is concerning. They've played 6 D1 opponents and 3 D2 opponents. Now, you will see stats for D2 opponents or D3 opponents, whoever they are. They do not factor into anything. Like, Bart Torvik removes them, I remove them, but you just see them on the schedule, so just be careful with that. That's why you see point per possession here, but you don't see any adjusted efficiencies. But what we're dealing with here is inconsistency. We have a 121 and 89, a 127, a 98, 87, 111.9. This is what I talk about. Hard to project a median outcome when you have a profile like this. But you're also finding that 1.15 point per possession, 1.12, 1.08. Sometimes you get those teams that are like, they do this against everybody. It doesn't matter if it's Duke. It doesn't matter if it's Presbyterian. They like perform the same. But that's concerning against Presbyterian, which is a bad team. But they went 6 out of 25. But now you're starting to see the story of like, this team's very efficient, like against Duke, when they go 18 out of 34 from 3. They're very inefficient against UNC Asheville when they go 2 of 24 from 3. Defensively, they have been pretty solid. So that's the story on the Citadel. Let's look at South Carolina State. They're 5-8, but 334. So this is an example of a team that probably had some close wins. If I were to guess, yes, 65-64, 67-66, OT. So, I mean, this would be a different story to most people if they were currently 2-11. But profile-wise, I think they're the same at 5-8 as they are at 2-11. Okay, this is a bad team. They're real bad. 2-3 games over 100 for adjusted efficiency. Made 3s in their last game. Haven't really shown the ability to do that. On the year, 34.1%. Not a good 2-point shooting team. So let's go to the matchup for that one. Citadel versus South Carolina State. Do we have any matchup edges? Citadel, not a good rebounding team. Average there. This is a fast-paced game. 2-point defense. Look, it appears South Carolina State would have trouble scoring on Citadel. But I think this comes down to variance and the fact that 48.9% of the Citadel's shots are coming from three. Situations like this, I think, are better to be left for live betting. And we don't have too much of a buffer here. I said 16, it's 11.5. And then when you go to bet it might be 12, 12.5, might be 11. That's where you really have to rely on, did the line move enough for me to want to accept the risk, or will I sit it out? Will I live bet it? Is it on my radar? Is it not? And that's why it's yellow. So, a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on that game. We'll finish up with St. Thomas and Nebraska Omaha because this is such a huge discrepancy. I have St. Thomas by 15, and the current line is somewhere around 3. All right, let's dig in to these clowns. So St. Thomas, they're located about 15 miles from me, I believe. They were a recent convert to D1, I want to say this year. Yes. So they don't have any data for last year. They were a D2 program. Last year, they left scorched earth in their old conference to move up in class to the Summit League. And usually that first year can be difficult. But you'll see some stuff in this profile that is somewhat intriguing. And you'll get a feel for what type of team this is once you look at it. So this is the Tommies. They are extremely efficient on offense, although that has slipped a little bit in their last few games. And they are extremely inefficient on defense. So what we mean by efficiency, I use this term all the time. Think of a basketball possession and what you do with that possession. That's why Dean Oliver created the 4 factors. That's why Torvik lists them. That's why Ken Pom uses them. Basically, you have this possession. Number 1, did you make the shot? What's your effective field goal? And they weight 3-pointers more. So that's why it's effective field goal, not a true field goal percentage. It gives you that extra 1.5 multiplier for a 3-pointer. Okay? If you miss the shot, how good are you at rebounding it? So do you get another possession or are you one and done? Did you get a shot off before you turned it over? What's your turnover percentage? And if none of those things happened, are you getting fouled at a high rate? So that is what effective field goal, turnover, offensive rebound, and free throw rate is. On the defensive side of the ball, when the other team has the ball, did you take away their possession before they shot it? Turnover. Did you prevent them from making it? If they missed, did you hold them to one shot? And did you prevent yourselves from fouling them? That's the game of basketball in a nutshell. I wish I would have learned this when I was like 10 years old, because that's all that matters. And how many wasted possessions I had in high school on our team. Okay, so back to business here. We have an extremely good shooting team. Who have they played? Mostly bottom. Drake, okay. Montana State, okay. Nebraska Omaha is near dead last. Okay, on defense, they give up a lot of high percentage 2-point shots, as evidenced by giving up 60% on 2-pointers for the season. So this is a team that can score, and this is a team that really has trouble stopping people. Let's look at Nebraska Omaha. They're 1-10, and they are not a very good basketball team. However, in the last few games, they have found some stuff offensively that was not there earlier. Schedule-wise, very similar to what we have seen out of the Tommies. On defense, they are also a sieve. So you have 2 teams that can't stop anybody, but I'm seeing how much more difficult it is for Nebraska Omaha to score. So where are they getting their shots? That's what you'd want to look at next. And we'll start with Nebraska Omaha. 4% of their shots are dunks. 28% are close twos. Add those together, you're talking about like a third. Some teams get closer to 50%. They take 30% from long two and then 40% three. St. Thomas will bait you into threes as they've allowed opponents to shoot 42.6, but it sounds like, from looking at their profile, those are pretty clean looks since they're getting absolutely torched. However, in close, it's about the same. So this is what we like to call a jump shooting contest. However, in a jump shooting contest, I would heavily weight the team with a 54.5 effective field goal versus a team with 45.9 effective field goal. Turnover. St. Thomas protects the ball, only 13.6% of possessions end in turnover. Nebraska-Omaha does not force turnovers anyway, so expect that to be the same. Nebraska-Omaha is sloppy with the ball, but don't expect St. Thomas to turn them over. So does that make Nebraska-Omaha a little more efficient, knowing that they won't have as many turnovers as they typically do? Yes. Rebounding perspective, St. Thomas gets killed on the glass. They are limited to one shot. However, if you're going to get a second opportunity, it's going to come against Nebraska-Omaha. They're not very strong there. And Nebraska-Omaha does not rebound much of their misses, and St. Thomas is actually pretty good at that. Free throw rate, St. Thomas does not get to the line very often. However, they might in this game as Nebraska-Omaha fouls at an extremely high rate. So overall, I'm looking at this. It is a high variance game because of the amount of threes that St. Thomas will shoot. However, I have seen enough that says they can make those jump shots, and I would be fine with that number. It's 3 points. It's fine. It's not ideal. Now, there are handicappers out there. I believe it's Jordan Majeski staring at the floorboards. He is great with matchups. He's not always right from a gambling perspective, but he knows teams, personnel, and stuff like that. He might say Nebraska-Omaha is extremely athletic, and that's going to give St. Thomas problems. I don't know stuff like that. Look, know your strengths, and I don't have time to dig into 350 basketball teams' full profiles. But I feel pretty good about this one. Is 15 a little strong? Yeah, a lot of it's due to three-point luck, but I have an extremely high buffer there to be wrong, and I'm happy with that. Last one I'm not going to go into detail on, just out of the sake of time, but I have Maryland Eastern Shore at 6.4 and Charlotte at current market of 12.5. So there's some buffer there. Maryland Eastern Shore, I don't even have their team pulled up. Let's just look at it. Woo, 343, but 5-5. I bet they've won some close games too. Overtime, 6. Yeah, only 2. Yeah, they're not very good. But nothing stands out. Not a good 2-point shooting team. They're playing Charlotte. Charlotte is 5-5. Who've they played? Decent schedule. About half of the teams in the top 100. Yeah, I don't know really what's... Charlotte's defense is what's leading to this. So 55.6 from 2. That's what's making this a possible play. Yeah, there's something here. Although Charlotte gets in. Yeah, I don't know. That's a maybe. So I have 2 yeses for sure. That's all that matters. And then we'll just kind of monitor the other ones. So that's it, man. Now, I spent more time on this than I typically do. I'm just vetting the data. And when I had 12 points of variance, I'm not going to dig into it that much. I feel pretty good. Just want to make sure there's nothing weird. They made 80% of their threes in the last 3 games, and that's why the model spit out what it did. So in this case, that did not happen. So let's get to what we got. UL Monroe, minus 4.5. Ken Palm is 2. However, this opened at 2.5 or 3. Could we get some buyback? I don't know. St. Thomas, minus 3, 3.5s. I've seen out there. Bovada does not have a line yet. Ken Palm is 1. Nebraska-Omaha is pretty bad, but I think people know that St. Thomas is new to D1, and that could keep things in check. So I don't see a scenario where I feel like I got a bad number on St. Thomas. I'm fine with what I get there. Maryland Eastern Shore at plus 12.5. That's more of it's in the pool. I haven't made a decision yet. And the Citadel 11.5 in against a team that wants to slow it down, carries a good amount of risk there. Other ones that are in the pool that you can look into: Notre Dame, Western Michigan. Western Michigan is real bad, but there could be some pace there that leads that to be a better play, but that is not great. And then Delaware State Wagner. Wagner is an underappreciated team, as evidenced by a number that big, no matter who the opponent is. And I typically save those big numbers for the elites in elite spots. But there's something there, and I'd be curious if the line came down. I'd also like to see a fast pace in that game. Haven't dug into that one at all, but it's in the pool. So there you have it. That was fun. A lot more detail. Thanks for hanging with me. I'll put in the comments that if you want to skip the skip the spiel, skip how the sausage is being made, and get right to the hot dog stand, that you can fast forward to the last few minutes of the video. But I enjoy this. I hope you do too, and I hope you're learning something, because touting is not for me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sell picks. Like to be a content contributor somewhere along the way, and I appreciate anyone who has followed along. It's fun for me, and hopefully fun for you. Thanks for stopping by, cutting down the nets.